Thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 4-1-2. It's a great day to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. Let's jump right in. So Jerry DULAC, he is reporting that one of our outside linebackers, one of our stud pass rushers might be traded going into the 2026 NFL Draft. Whether it's TJ Watt, whether it's Nick Herbig, whether it's Alex Highsmith, I hope we don't trade any of these players. I think Coach Tomlin and Coach Austin failed Nick Herbig, not getting him on the field enough. Coach Tomlin and Coach Austin, what they needed to do was copy USC from back in the day when USC had Brian Cushing, Ray Maliugo, and Clay Matthews, and they were able to do an elephant package to get all those players on the field to rush the passer. Never once did Coach Tomlin try to get Nick Herbig on the field. And if Nick Herbig is unhappy in Pittsburgh, that's because of Coach Tomlin's negligence. And going into this contract year, it's obvious that Nick Herbig knows his worth. He knows how much money he should get. He knows his value. And I would really hate to see him playing for another team other than the black and gold. But I can't blame Nick Herbig if he doesn't want to be a Steeler anymore because he's not getting on the field. I mean, how can you blame the guy? He's in his prime. He's a stud. He wants to play football. I always say, until TJ Watt is the reliever, I think that Nick Herbig should be the inside linebacker. You can also blitz him. You can also rush him, have him rush the passer from wherever he's lined up. I didn't really like hearing this news today. I really want to see Nick Herbig develop into, the next pass rushing stud for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't want him going anywhere, but it's tough. I mean, I think this is his, fourth or fifth year with the Steelers. And if he doesn't start, if he doesn't get the snaps that he wants, I can't blame him for wanting to leave. So let's jump into the article and see what Jerry DULAC had to say. Let's see what's going on. Just give me a minute. Let me pull up the article. Then the Steelers, I keep reading articles that the Steelers in the first round might be interested in drafting an edge player. If they draft an edge player, that tells you that somebody is probably not going to be re-signed, meaning Nick Herbig. If the Steelers go first round, if they, draft an edge rusher in the first round of this year's draft. So should be interesting. I really don't want to see any of these players get traded, but it might happen. Hold on. Give me a minute. I'm having trouble bringing up the article. What else is new? I mean, are the Steelers going to be, able to pay Nick Herbig the kind of money that he wants? Let me read this article first. Nick Herbig knows his worth. Nick Herbig is well aware of his value entering negotiations, beat writer says. Whether or not the Pittsburgh Steelers are able to extend Nick Herbig this offseason is one of the most consequential agenda items for the future of the franchise. TJ Watt and Alex Smith are aging, but both are also under contract for at least the next 2 seasons, leaving a tricky situation for Herbig's future with the team. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Brian Backo outlined the factors at play as both Herbig and the team weigh their options. Herbig is well aware that he has produced as a pass rusher and is well aware of what kind of money those guys make, Backo wrote in his weekly mailbag. Herbig knows his worth on the open market, and it's twice as high as it would have been had he had gone to a team that pigeonholed him as a stack linebacker or hybrid player. Perhaps he would have been in the all defensive structure or engineered the same confidence in all general managers. Would that make him more liable for a hometown discount? To an extent. Let me read this. Let me go to the super chats. Somebody said, when you're not wiped good, do you blame Tomlin for that too? I don't know. Maybe I do, Thunder God. Do you want to check? You're Thunder God. Are you really going to sit here and say that Coach Tomlin did a good job of getting Nick Herbig on the field? Are you really going to say that? He's the most explosive defensive player on defense. And I remember last year, Tomlin made him a captain for the game, and then Nick Herbig barely got on the field. Is Tomlin's not responsible for getting Nick Herbig on the field? Are you going to argue with me about that? You really think that Nick Herbig should have been getting 11 to 12 snaps a game? Your most explosive pass rusher? And every time he was on the field, he made a big play for the Steelers? Whose fault is it, Thunder God 178? You tell me, whose fault is that? Here, I'll tell you, it's Tomlin and Austin's fault. That's who. Credit to Backo for this pull, but Nick Herbig admitted he's a sport track junkie during an episode of Cam Hayward's Not Just Football in August. Whatever that means. I'm a spot track junkie? Oh, now I get it. Spot rack junkie. Okay, I didn't understand what he was saying at first. That's pretty funny. Have fun covering that punt on fourth down. So Watt is actually making fun of the amount of snaps that Nick Herbig is getting. Yeah. Leave it to Tomlin. We're going to make Nick Herbig the captain today. You know, they're going to pat him on the back. You're the captain today, but by the way, you're not going to play. You know, only Thunder God 178 would defend that. But hey, it's me. I'm just a Tomlin hater. I just hate Tomlin. I got Tomlin's picture on my dartboard in my room because I just hate Tomlin so much. Bahami Jones predictions. Maybe it wasn't on you. Bahami Jones predict Mike Tomlin's critics will be proven wrong. Oh, I seriously doubt that. Aaron Rodgers could never be the answer. Aaron Rodgers last year wasn't good enough. There's no reason to assume he'll be as good next year as he was last year. See, this is the problem with Bahami Jones. This is the problem with people that don't cover the Steelers. If it wasn't for Aaron Rodgers, we don't win one game last year. We might win 2 games the whole season. It just shows you how delusional the Tomlin underwear sniffers really are, and like the Tomlin worshipers. It's like, really? Aaron Rodgers failed Mike Tomlin? It's not the other way around, Bahami Jones? Oh, God. That's just not how things work. So why are we like, why in the world are you doing this? Why weren't you the ones to go get Malik Willis or something? Malik Willis sucks. You didn't get Malik Willis, so the organization let Tomlin down. Tomlin is the one that decides who comes to play for the Steelers. Tomlin has the final decision. If Malik Willis wasn't on the Steelers, that's because Tomlin didn't want him to be on the Steelers. Jones said Thursday on his Right Time podcast, I just can't imagine how they got themselves stuck in this place. And they're in. And by the way, which makes me look at Mike Tomlin and be like, okay, maybe it wasn't on you. Yeah, okay, Bahan. Right. Okay. Anyway. Another idiot, another Tomlin worshiper who thinks, the Steelers head coach is not responsible that they haven't won a playoff game in 10 years. And Tomlin couldn't draft or develop a quarterback in 19 years. Yep, somehow, some way, that's Art Rooney's fault. It's just so ridiculous, man. It really is. It's just, it's so like out of hand. Christian Kuntz shares Mike Mike McCarthy's very Pittsburgh opening address to team, he said, "Jag off." It was our first day of voluntary workouts, and it was Coach Mike McCarthy's first day of dressing the team, Christian Coots said on the Christian Coots podcast. He was probably a little nervous, but he had some juice about him. And I feel like his accent even came out more than it ever had. He used jag off, excuse me. He was talking about Kenny Wood, Muth, Pat Fryermuth turned around when he said jag off. Why do I have problems pronouncing this? Jag off, and looked at me, and I'm smiling ear to ear. I felt like I was listening to my dad teach our team back in Little League. Kuntz, a Pittsburgh native who attended Chartiers Valley High School and later Duquesne, is the perfect person to tell the story. Newcomers to the team like Michael Pittman Jr. may not fully understand, but there are plenty of veterans on the roster with whom his accent would resonate. The unintuited will be on an accelerated learning curve with Mike McCarthy at the helm. You can take the people out of Pittsburgh, but you will never take the Pittsburgh out of people, Bill Cowher said on Coots' podcast. That's why Mike McCarthy coming back there, he fell right back into being a Yinzer. He's a Yinzer, and that will never change. McCarthy grew up in Greenfield on the east bank of the Monongahela River and had a lifelong dream of coaching his hometown Steelers. It's a dream he never thought would be realized given Mike Tomlin's nearly 20-year tenure with an organization that changes head coaches only once every few decades. He won a lot of people with his opening address to the media with a heavy emotional focus on returning home, and it sounds like he did the same with his opening address to the players. That points to the excitement level on the team. Everybody loved Mike Tomlin, but there's something to be said about blind hope that comes with a large-scale change. It's great. You're back in the building. You see all the guys and the new faces. You get a little giddy, Kuhn said, of the atmosphere being back together with the team. One reporter noted a new feel in the building and the Mike McCarthy's era. It's early, but sounds like the new feel is resonating with the players. Yeah, I mean, it was time for a change. It is time to be a very well-coached football team. The days of mediocrity are no longer going to be accepted. And, change is on the horizon. Okay, Thunder God 178. Got it. Brian, why Steelers trading Patrick Queen to Cowboys during 2026 NFL draft could happen? I never really been one who likes to write about potential trades during the draft, and most of you longtime readers know that. With that said, I can't help but wonder right now if all the previous smoke concerning the Dallas Cowboys and them potentially trading for the Pittsburgh Steelers inside linebacker Patrick Queen might resurface in 2 weeks during the first round of the 2026 NFL draft. For starters, the Cowboys, at least according to my in-depth research, really seem to need an inside linebacker, cornerback, and a possibility a safety in the earlier rounds of the draft. While they have 2 first-round draft picks this year, they don't have a second-round selection, and their lone third selection isn't until 92nd overall. The Cowboys do currently own the 12th overall selection in the 2026 NFL draft, but even so, there's a good chance that linebacker Sonny Styles, safety Caleb Downs, and cornerback Mansour Delane are all taken within the first 11 selections. If, however, one of those 3 players should fall to the Cowboys at 12th overall, they probably won't bypass said player. I mean, if you pass on Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles, there's something wrong with your organization. I'm really hoping those 2 players fall to the Steelers, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're going to have to trade up and get them. Why is this article so much about the... Recently, there have been some rumblings about the Cowboys might try to trade up from 12th overall to draft one of them, to draft one of the Styles, Downs, or Delane. And it will be interesting to see if such a deal comes to fruition. All right, where am I going to get to Queen? I'm reading too much about the Cowboys here. Let me move up in the article. Yes, the Steelers have already reportedly paid Queen his $2.5 million roster bonus for 2026. So trading him at this point would result in that money becoming dead along with his remaining signing bonus. proration amount of $3,863,334. Even so, trading Queen would free up $10.83 million in both 2026 salary cap space and cash spending for the Steelers. Moving him would also allow a third-year inside linebacker Peyton Wilson to become an every down player. Should the Cowboys ultimately want to trade for Queen, they would probably do so with the plan of signing him right away to a contract extension. Also, Queen recently changed agents despite him having 1 year remaining on his contract is a bit curious. If you want my honest opinion, remember Queen won't turn 27 years old until right before the 2026 regular season gets underway. Oh, I thought he was older. I thought he was closer to 30. Damn, he's still in his prime. So he's as attractive as they come when it comes to a team like the Cowboys, who certainly seem to need another veteran inside linebacker. Well, I mean, you got to look what's on the market. If the Steelers can't get a player, a linebacker in the first round that's better than Queen, I don't know. I think that I want to see Queen be coached by McCarthy and a new defensive coordinator. I think he'll be much better. I think he'll be a much better player in a better position to make plays. He complains about the defense all the time being too complicated and making him think instead of letting him react. So I hope the Steelers don't say goodbye to Patrick Queen. He is very productive. And, you know, I've been critical of him for missing tackles and not showing up in big games, but I'd like to see all these players get a new fresh start under Coach McCarthy. Let's see what else is going on in Steeler world. Let's see. Don't think they're going to bring back Patrick Queen. Beat writer says 2026 as linebacker's final season with the Steelers. That's definitely possible. Let me look at the super chats. Derby501ST2 said, I don't want TJ anymore. I want TJ. I want to see TJ finish his whole career here. I mean, I know at a certain point he's going to have to be the reliever or maybe not the starter. But once again, I say this all the time in his defense, he is still getting double teamed, triple teamed, and chipped more than anybody in the National Football League. And if he wasn't a dangerous or productive player, they wouldn't be doing that. And I want you, for anybody that thinks that TJ Watt is washed up, I want you to compare Max Crosby's stats to TJ Watt's stats. Derby501ST2 said should have been moved in 2023 prior to his new contract. I don't believe that. Listen, all you have to do if you want to know how good TJ Watt is, just look up Max Crosby's stats and compare him to TJ Watt's. TJ Watt is beating Max Crosby in every statistical category but one, and that's sacks. And he only had 2 or 3 more sacks than TJ Watt. So you really have to research that. That's like the cool thing to say. You know, that's the here we go. And these stupid every offseason, this is all you hear, how the Steelers are going to trade TJ Watt. Steelers have little reason to trade TJ Watt, Labriola says. Oh, here we go. In my opinion, there would be little reason for a new coaching staff to be interested in unloading a pedigree player who also serves as a leader and example to his teammates in the way he works and prepares and conducts himself as a professional, Labriola wrote Thursday in his Asked and Answered podcast. Labriola was asked if the Steelers were putting Watt on the trade block, which he clearly doesn't think is a good idea, and neither do I. And those are some good reasons to keep Watt around. He's been a leader in the locker room for years, is one of the most important players in the recent franchise history, and still came up big at times last year. On the other hand, Watt is playing on a very expensive extension he signed last offseason, and his play in 2025 certainly wasn't on the upswing after having something of a down year with sacks in 2024. Watt had just 7 in 14 games in 2025. He also had just 10 tackles for a loss after having 19 the year before. Watt still created his share of splash plays in 2025 and deserves a lot of credit for coming back from a freak lung injury last season, but his price tag and considering he's turned 32 in October are valid reasons to consider a trade, and with Nick Herbig's future in the balance, it's something to consider. If the Steelers keep Watt and Herbig ends up leaving as a free agent, that decision might not look great a few years later. If anybody that should be traded, I think it's Alex Highsmith. Now, Alex Highsmith has these good spurts, and he plays in spurts, and then he always Nick Herbig misses games too all the time. But when TJ Watt is getting double teamed and triple teamed all the time, and you see all the blockers, Nick Herbig, especially Alex Highsmith, because he gets the majority of the reps over Nick Herbig. Alex Highsmith is the pass rusher that's really not producing. If you got 2 or 3 guys blocking TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith is the other pass rusher, why doesn't Alex Highsmith average 10 to 15 sacks a season? Alex Highsmith is the outside linebacker that's really underperforming here. Man, I really mean that, and I believe that. And it's pretty obvious if you just look at it in a very rational way. Again, if TJ Watt was getting one-on-one block, if he was being blocked one-on-one, he was losing all of his one-on-one battles all the time, I'd have to agree with you. He's not worth the money. He can't play anymore, but that's not the case. He's getting double-teamed, chipped, you name it, it's happening. And you can't deny that part of it. So let's see what else is going on. NFL executive says former NFL executive thinks Steelers should target edge and draft. The edge position with TJ Watt getting a little older, been banged up the last couple of years, and outside of he and Alex Highsmith, not a whole lot of juice off the edges there. So getting some young, fresh edge rushers there as well, Ross said. I mean, what's Nick Herbig? He's fresh. He barely plays. What's he, 25 years old? There are layers to the conversation of whether the Steelers should draft an edge and how high they should take one, but it's a little ridiculous to say the Steelers don't have juice behind Watt and Highsmith when the team has probably the best third outside linebacker in the league in Nick Herbig. Yeah, that's what I just said. Let's not forget Jack Sawyer. Jack Sawyer was a hell of a player last year for the Steelers. Every time he got on the field, he was making plays. Let's not forget him. It's just like, oh, Jack Sawyer didn't do anything. That's a lie. And the article goes on to say the Steelers also got a positive contributions from Jack Sawyer as a rookie, giving them a real solid group of 4 outside linebackers. Yeah, exactly. So I don't understand why you'd want to take another one if you have 4. We need to get a top-notch safety. Again, it's about quantity. It's about quality, not quantity. If we got to trade a couple picks to go up in the draft and get Caleb Downs, get him. His mindset really reminds me of Minkah Fitzpatrick and Ronnie Lott. He takes the game very serious. I think he's going to be a pro's pro. I think he's worth the trade up in the draft. The Steelers trade up all the time and draft players that are total busts. Caleb Downs is the one player that if you trade up, I really think it's going to work out. So, especially this year's draft class, there's not a lot of players with first round grades. So, if you're predicted to go in the first round and, there's only 11 players that have first round grades in the first round. I read an article the other day. So who cares if you trade 2 third-round draft picks to go up and get a legitimate, a player like Caleb Downs that has a legitimate grade, that he's a true first-round talent and pick. You need to do it. I don't want to have 15 draft picks and within the next 4 years, none of them are on the roster anymore. How much sense does that make? It doesn't make any sense at all. Let's see what else is going on. Give me a minute. $1970 child in the super chat said, I want Omar Cooper at wide receiver if they don't trade up. I don't think they're going wide receiver. I really don't. I mean, Michael Pittman Jr. is getting a lot of money. DK Metcalf's getting money. I mean, I know we need a third guy, but I think they believe in Roman Wilson. I don't think it's going to happen in the first round. That's just my opinion. Let's see what Jerome Bettis has to say. Jerome Bettis lists Steelers' top needs to address early in draft. This is what Jerome had to say. Look at the offensive line, look at the wide receiver position, and then on defense, the 2 positions I would look at would be inside linebacker and cornerback. Jerome, come on. We don't need cornerback, Jerome. I mean, maybe you just misspoke. Joey Porter Jr. and our new signee from the Tampa Bay Bucks. I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head real fast. Give me a second. Let me. Why am I forgetting his name? Steelers corners. Sorry. Little brain freeze. Jamal Dean, excuse me. We don't need corners right now. We have 2 studs at corner. We have a lot of... Asante Samuel Jr. is going to be a good player for the Steelers. The other kid that they brought in for the Jets. We need a safety. We need a top-notch safety. This is what Jerome had to say. I would look to address one of those 4 areas with the top player that's available in any of those areas. Bettis said regarding the Steelers' top draft priorities. But I do believe you need to really address offensively the receiver position and the offensive line as well. I couldn't disagree more about drafting a receiver, especially in the first, second. I mean, if you want to get one in the 3rd or 4th round, okay, fine. Last year, we thought we were going to be able to run the ball and we would have Aaron Rodgers. He wouldn't have to do much, Bettis said. Couldn't run the football. DK Metcalf got suspended. We had nobody who could catch the football. We were worried about throwing it. Who could we throw the football to? I mean, he had a point there, but you know what? I mean, it's DK Metcalf's fault that he was suspended because somebody called him by his first name. I mean, whose fault is that, Jerome? But yeah, do we need depth at receiver? Yeah. Do I think that Mike McCarthy is going to develop receivers better than Tomlin and his coaching staff? Absolutely. If Roman Wilson Roman Wilson had a pretty dominant college football career. If he can, dominate the way he did in college for the Steelers, we'll be in good shape with him as the 3rd receiver. I mean, I know that's a big if, and I know that's a big question mark, so it's undeniable, but Mike McCarthy likes to come out in those 4 receiver sets, 5 receiver sets, so. Draft analyst names only wide receiver Steelers should consider trading up for in draft. If the Steelers are set on drafting a wide receiver in the 1st round, there's only one worth considering trading up for. According to the draft analyst Nick Baumgartner of The Athletic, Pittsburgh should stay put unless it's for Carnell Tate, the top wide receiver on his board. He has the best shot at being a true number 1, he says. Carnell Tate, I watched a couple of his games. He really reminds me of Jimmy Smith from the Jaguars back in the day. I'm not saying that Carnell Tate is slow because he's not slow. He's a lot faster than Jimmy Smith. Jimmy Smith ran like a 4.7, 140. Carnell Tate, I think, ran a 4.59. But there's just something about his play. And Jimmy Smith is a Hall of Fame player, excellent player. That's who Carnell Tate reminds me of. But I don't know. I think the Steelers have more pressing needs. DK Metcalf is young. Michael Pittman Jr. is still young. 1970s child in the super chat says, how about offensive tackle Blake Miller of Clemson? He can play right tackle and move Fontano to left tackle. Cutter Trey Jones. I like him a lot, Blake Miller. I think he's super athletic. I mean, there's nothing that you could say that you don't like about him coming out in the draft, right? But how is Troy Fontana? How do you think he's going to feel about being moved? He's a 1st-round pick. Do you really think he wants to go from the right to the left? A lot of players don't like that. Because I hear this often. I hear that argument often, like, oh, just move Troy Fontana. I mean, Troy Fontana is not a guy that got picked up in free agency or is a 3rd or 4th. He's a 1st-round pick. Now, I feel the same way about Broderick Jones. I don't think it's going to work out. I think it's 60-40, 70-30 that Broderick Jones doesn't work out for the Steelers. I don't know. Do I think he's going to be better coached under Mike McCarthy? Absolutely. Am I more concerned about him now than ever with that neck stinger? Absolutely. But I don't know. 1970s child says Fontano played left tackle in college. Yeah, I understand that, but it's one thing to play it in college. It's another thing to play it in the NFL. And I mean, I know Troy Fontana will, being the team guy that he is and being laid back the way he probably will say, I don't care where I play. I don't know if I really believe that. I do think he has a preference where he wants to play. So I don't know. I mean, could it work? Yeah, absolutely. If they went after Blake Miller from Clemson, could it work? I mean, that would be a great tandem at tackle. The Steelers are also interested in the kid from Utah, another Samoan player. He's giant, but I mean, Blake Miller's a giant too. But I can't complain if the Steelers take a offensive tackle in the draft because we really need one. We're for the Steelers to say, "Oh, we have full confidence in Broderick Jones at this point in his career." I think that's a big, huge liability. So I don't think you can't argue or complain if the Steelers go tackle and left tackle or right tackle in the NFL draft. I mean, other than quarterback, it's probably the most important position on the field. Let's see what else is going on in Steelers world. Steelers won't be forced to draft quarterback in 2026. NFL draft guru. Yeah, no kidding, because there's not one that's good enough. The last thing we want the Steelers to do is reach for a quarterback in the first round and the organization gets set back another 10 years like what happened with Kenny Pickett. I told you I went full Candace Owens. I kept having a dream that the Steelers drafted Dylan Raiola in the 2027 NFL draft, and he turned out to be the next Big Ben. So big, sturdy frame, big guy, can really throw, looks super poised. I like Dylan Raiola a lot. I think he's at Oregon this year. He transferred from Nebraska. It's 2026 Nick Herbig's last season with Steelers. In 15 games last season, Herbig produced 7.5 sacks and 610 snaps. He also registered 18 quarterback hits, showing he consistently got after the quarterback in total. He has 16 across 1,216 snaps, including special teams work. He also has an impressive 9 forced fumbles. He nabbed his first interception last year too, though he should have had another one. Nick Herbig might not be what AI would spit out if you program the ideal 3-4 edge rusher, but the Steelers have seen enough to know that he deserves to start. At the same time, that doesn't mean they have a starting job for him. After all, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith deserve to start too. Well, I don't really believe that because remember James Harrison, he's 5'10", 240 pounds. Nick Herbig is 6'2", 240, 245. And Nick Herbig really reminds me of Greg Lloyd. The body type, the way he twists and turns and the explosiveness. He might not be as mean as Greg Lloyd. That's a whole different... The biggest problem with Nick Herbig is availability. He doesn't seem too durable. He's always missing 2 or 3 games a year with a hamstring problem. I want to see Nick Herbig. He doesn't even play full time. So when Nick Herbig is the full-time starter, Nick Herbig now barely plays and he's missing 2 or 3 games every year because of a hamstring problem. So the equation the Steelers have to consider is the long-term future and whether Herbig is worth sacrificing a starting linebacker. It would be extremely difficult to give him a starter-level contract extension without providing him a starting job. But is trading Watt or Highsmith the only way Herbig remains with the Steelers beyond 2026? No, because you can put him at Mike linebacker, and he doesn't even have to be the Mike linebacker. You could just move him all around the field like a Derek Thomas. They did this. Pete Carroll did a great job of this at USC when USC was loaded with NFL players. Was Brian Cushing, Maliuga, and Clay Matthews. They were always on the field rushing the passer together. You just got to be creative and get him on the field. You can't just pat him on the back like Tomlin and be like, you know what? We're going to make you the captain today, and that's going to make you not care that you only played 3 snaps. God, I remember that. Like, oh, he's so important to the team, Nick Herbig. We're going to make him the captain, but he only played, we're only going to let him play 4 snaps today. It's just like, whatever. Give me a break. When it comes to things like that, like Tomlin saying, oh, I got you, bro. I got you, man. I got you. Like, it could be really frustrating where you just want to leave Pittsburgh. And I could see Nick Herbig being like, I'm fed up. I'm fed up. You just seen the video I played at TJ Watt and Nick Herbig. TJ Watt's ripping Nick Herbig. He's like, yeah, have fun running down on 4th down, covering that punt. And Cam Hayward's cracking up. They know he should be on the field. They're not stupid. So the Steelers have not been creative at all getting Nick Herbig on the field. Think about this. If Peyton Wilson's on the field in a passing down, now you're going to be like, well, Peyton Wilson's in coverage and Nick Herbig is blitzing. Well, I mean, and Peyton Wilson does do a good job in coverage, but wouldn't you rather be more aggressive and having a blitzer? So all the snaps that Peyton Wilson had last year, they could have went to Nick Herbig. I mean, you gotta get the best players available on the field. They say that Peyton Wilson has a problem playing the run. Well, if he has a problem playing the run and, you know, he's getting beat a little bit in pass coverage, then maybe Nick Herbig should get those snaps. Let's see what else is going on in Steeler world. This is the article I originally want to start with. You know, I'm 36 minutes in and now I'm finally reading the article. Jerry DULAC cryptically hints Steelers could trade a starting outside linebacker. Now, I'm not trying to give the Steelers playbook away because I am for the black and gold, and I do my best to protect the Pittsburgh Steelers and Art Rooney. I'm always for them. But when you see Jerry DULAC do something like this, because he's so plugged in with the Steelers and he has, you know, Art Rooney II on speed dial, sometimes the Steelers use Jerry DULAC as he throws the net out there. He throws the fishing lines out there. So if Jerry DULAC reports this, it lets other teams know, like, hey, you know, Steelers are listening to offers for you know, a starting linebacker. So you never know. I mean, Jerry DULAC cryptically hints Steelers could trade a starting outside linebacker. And in his weekly chats for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Jerry DULAC loves leaving readers wanting more. Last week, he created a stir by suggesting the Pittsburgh Steelers would take Oregon tight end Kenyon Sadiq. Should he be available at number 21 overall? This week, he's hinting the team could trade one of its starting outside linebackers. Responding to one chatter who asked about a hypothetical Nick Herbig trade, DULAC answered in suggestive fashion. I think the trade would involve someone ahead of him, DULAC wrote when asked if Herbig could be dealt to acquire 2027 capital. DULAC didn't specifically refer to TJ Watt or Alex Highsmith. Highsmith has been subject to plenty of internet speculation about being traded, a move that would allow Herbig to crack the starting lineup. But there's been little actual reporting to legitimize the idea that Pittsburgh would trade Highsmith. Coming off a disappointing season marred by freak lung injury, Watt, in theory, could be on the move. In December, DULAC suggested defensive lineman Cam Hayward or Watt could be moved in the offseason. I would not be opposed to trading one of your highest priced guys after the season and hoping you get a number 1 pick in return, DULAC wrote at the time. Trust me, it is not far-fetched, wink wink. Problem is sometimes the value depreciates as you go. I mean, I understand that this is a business and you don't want to hold on to players too long, but TJ Watt is a legendary player, and his play hasn't dropped off that significantly where you just say bye-bye, it's over, goodbye. You know, let's say like after this year, let's say TJ Watt this year only gets 6 sacks, and it's really, really noticeable that he has to be the reliever, the closer, where, you know, Nick Herbig comes in and is the full-time starter, and now TJ Watt is coming off the bench and he's getting snaps here or there. There are certain players in your organization that need to finish their entire career with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It sends a message to the rest of the players like, hey, we understand eventually everybody, Father Time is undefeated, but we still do have our superstars. We are still loyal to, you know, Steeler royalty like TJ Watt. So I think there is a little bit more to this decision besides money. Yes, I know that's hard for a lot of you to believe. And besides production, I know none of you are going to want to hear that, but TJ Watt still sets the edge very well. He still has tackles for a loss. He's still forcing fumbles. again, if you compare TJ Watt and Max Crosby, TJ Watt statistically in every category except for one, sacks, is better than Max Crosby. And he's getting, chipped 300 times more than the next player, some ridiculous number. So I'm not going to be, until I see TJ Watt just totally fall off and he's just like, it's just over and it's over and we all know it's over. I can't go there. I just can't. I just can't do it. And there's some players like, I don't ever want to see Cam Hayward in another uniform. I felt that way about Minkah Fitzpatrick. And I think the Steelers made a bad decision trading away Minkah Fitzpatrick. He should still be a Steeler. He set the tone in the locker room on the practice field. He was very, very dedicated to his craft. I think he's a better safety than Jalen Ramsey. Fine, he doesn't, all this talk that Jalen Ramsey is going to be the slot corner and they're going to move him around, and you're acting like Jalen Ramsey is still the Jalen Ramsey when he was 25 years old. And I don't know how anybody could even think that after watching last year's games. And when it comes strictly to just playing the safety position, Minkah Fitzpatrick's a much more disciplined safety than Jalen Ramsey. He knows the position better because that's where he's played his whole career. I think the Steelers, I think they got worse by trading away Minkah Fitzpatrick. So, and I'm never going to change that opinion. Think about what the Steelers gave up for Jalen Ramsey and Jono Smith. They gave away Minkah, not that they gave him away. I mean, I heard he had some other issues going on also. Like, I even heard this weird thing that, like, he asked, because he lives in Florida, that he wanted to go back home to play because he was having some type of family issues. I'm not saying anything derogatory about his family. I'm just saying, like, I know he just had a child. Like, I heard that there was more to it besides football, and the organization agreed. That's just what I heard. I'm not saying that's 100% certain, but I did hear some rumblings like that. So you never know. Good sign for Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones participates in Steelers Phase 1 workouts. Broderick Jones appears to be back at practice, at least in a limited capacity, as the Pittsburgh Steelers begin Phase 1 of their offseason conditioning program. The team shared a compilation video of workouts from Tuesday afternoon, and Jones was briefly shown doing a backpedal drill with several of his teammates. Well, that's a good sign. He's back out there, but until he puts a helmet on and gets hit, when you get those neck stingers and you have neck problems, bulging discs, I mean, that's serious. Jones suffered a neck injury in Week 12 against the Chicago Bears and missed the rest of the 2025 season. The injury reported requiring spinal fusion surgery. I didn't know it was that. Damn. I thought it was just like bulging discs. Spinal fusion surgery. Damn. That's not a good sign. Firmly putting his 2026 season in question, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Jerry DULAC later reported he was further along in the process than expected and likely to be back for training camp as a full participant. Wow. I mean, I knew, obviously, when you have a neck injury, it's never just a minor thing. So it's not like I thought it was no big deal, but I didn't know it was spinal fusion surgery. Now I think to myself, now the Steelers definitely need to take offensive tackle in the 2026 NFL draft. And these things are very funny. Like, it's one thing to be out there running around with shorts and a helmet on or a sweatsuit. It's another thing when, outside linebackers that weigh 265 pounds and run a 440, hit you, helmet first, and to see if he can take those blows and impact like he once did. So it should be interesting. I don't know. If you're going into the draft, obviously you're not going to see Broderick and a helmet and pads, getting hit. So I think going into the draft, that pretty much confirms you really need to take an offensive tackle. Because who's to say he can even hold up? I know his replacement played well, but wow. That Broderick injury is bad news. Spinal fusion surgery. That's no joke. It was a very weird play, too. Broderick Jones, the defender, jumped in the air And Broderick Jones, he like rammed the defender's stomach or like his hips with his own head. He like headbutted his hips. And then, his neck was messed up. It was a very strange play. It's not like it was like a head-on collision. It didn't happen like that. It was kind of like a freak thing. I'm going to end it with this article. Keanu Benton seems like the odd man out for extension, Capoli says. To me, Benton seems like the odd man out, or at least not a top priority of getting an extension done before the season, even if Cam Hayward is set to be 37 in a month, Capoli wrote on X. The addition of Sebastian Joseph Day and DERRICK Harmon, as well as Y.A. Black, might put Benton on the back burner. They could lose him if a deal isn't done before their deadline, but they probably don't have much of a choice unless you wait and transition tag him next year. I think they're definitely going to wait. There's this chatter and talk among Steeler fans like, oh, Keanu Benton, he turned it around. I didn't see enough last year to be like, oh, Keanu Benton definitely turned the corner. So I think the Steelers are definitely going to wait. If he gets coached by Mike McCarthy this year and he has a bad year and he goes back to getting turned, he seems to always get turned sideways a little bit. Sometimes he gets blown off the ball. He needs to be hip on hip with the offensive lineman. He does show some streaks. But here's the problem. Here's the entire problem with Keanu Benton's career. He needs to be a defensive end. He doesn't need to be lined up at the zero technique, nose guard, defensive tackle. Even though he's a big guy at 6'5", 315 pounds and very athletic, if you're in your base 3-4 defense, I think that's where Keanu Benton needs to play. I think he needs to be a defensive end. I think the Steelers have been playing him wrong. I think Mike Tomlin and Austin have been playing him in the wrong position the entire time. All right, let me wrap it up. And with that being said, thanks for tuning in to Steel City Football, the 4-1-2.